Welcome to Golper Ashur with Madhubanti. Hope all of you are doing well. I'm fine too. Today I'm gonna recite the rest of the part of Anath Babu's Terror. Hope many of you have come across the first one. And who have not listened it yet, they will get the link of the first one in the description box below. So let's start. The door to the west room was closed. Anath Babu pushed it gently with his forefinger. A nameless fear gave me goose pimples. The door swung open. But the room revealed nothing unusual. It may have been a living room once. There was a big table in the middle with a missing top. Only the four legs stood upright. An easy chair stood near the window. Although sitting in it now would not be very easy, as it had lost one of its arms and a portion of its seat. I glanced up and saw that bits and pieces of an old-fashioned hand-pulled fan still hung from the ceiling. It didn't have a rope. The wooden bar was broken and its main body torn. Apart from these objects, the room had a shelf that must once have held rifles, a pipeless hookah, and two ordinary chairs, also with broken arms. Anath Babu appeared to be deep in thought. After a while, he said, "Can you smell something?" "Smell what?" "Incense, oil, and burning flesh, all mixed together." I inhaled deeply, but could smell nothing beyond the usual musty smell that comes from a room that has been kept shut for a long time. So I said, "Why, no, I don't think I can." Anath Babu didn't say anything. Then suddenly he struck his left hand with his right and exclaimed, "Oh God, I know this smell well. There is bound to be a spirit lurking about in this house, though whether or not he will make an appearance remains to be seen. Let's go." Anath Babu decided to spend the following night in the Haldar mansion. On our way back, he said, "I won't go tonight because tomorrow is a moonless night, the most appropriate time for ghosts and spirits to come out. Besides, I need a few things which I haven't got with me today. I'll bring those tomorrow. Today I had come only to make a survey." Before we parted company near Biren's house, he lowered his voice and said, "Please don't tell anyone else about my plan. From what I heard today, people here are so superstitious and easily frightened that they might actually try to stop me from going in if they came to know of my plan. And," he added, "and please don't mind that I didn't ask you to join me. One has to be alone, you see, for something like this." I sat down the next day to write, but couldn't concentrate. My mind kept going back to the west room in that mansion. God knew what kind of experience awaited Anath Babu. I couldn't help feeling a little restless and anxious. I accompanied Anath Babu in the evening, right up to the gate of the Haldar mansion. He was wearing a black high-neck jacket today. From his shoulder hung a flask, and in his hand he carried the same torch he had used the day before. He took out a couple of small bottles from his pocket before going into the house. "Look," he said, "this one has a special oil made with my own formula. It has an excellent mosquito repellent. And this one here has carbolic acid in it. If I spread it in and around the room, I'll be safe from snakes." He put the bottles back in his pocket, raised the torch and touched his head with it. Then he waved me a final salute and walked in, his heavy boots clicking on the gravel. I couldn't sleep well that night. As soon as dawn broke, I told Bharadwaj to fill a thermoflask with enough tea for two. When the flask arrived, I left once more for the Hardar mansion. No one was about. Should I call out to Anath Babu, or should I go straight up to the west room? As I stood debating, a voice said, "Here, this way." Anath Babu was coming out of the little jungle of wild plants from the eastern side of the house, a neem twig in his hand. He certainly didn't look like a man who might have had an unnatural or horrific experience the night before. He grinned broadly as he came closer. I had to search for about half an hour before I could find a neem tree. I preferred this to a toothbrush, you see. I felt hesitant to ask him about the previous night. "I brought some tea," I said instead. "Would you like some here, or would you rather go home?" "Oh, come along. Let's sit by that fountain." Anath Babu took a long sip of his tea and said, "Ah," with great relish. Then he turned to me and said with a twinkle in his eye, "You are dying to know what happened, aren't you?" Yes, a little." "All right. I will tell you everything, but let me just say this one thing right away. The whole expedition was highly successful." He poured himself a second mug of tea and began his tale. "It was 5 p.m. when you left me here. I looked around for a bit before going into the house. One has to be careful, you know. There are times when animals and other living beings can cause more harm than ghosts. But I didn't find anything dangerous. Then I went in and looked into the rooms in a ground floor that were open. None had any furniture left. All I could find was some old rubbish in one and a few bats hanging from the ceiling in another. They didn't budge as I went in, so I came out again without disturbing them. I went upstairs at around 6:30 p.m. and began making preparations for the night. I had taken a duster with me. The first thing I did was to dust that easy chair. Heaven knows how long it had lain there. The room felt stuffy, so I opened the window. The door to the passage was also left open, just in case Mr. Ghost wished to make his entry through it. Then I placed the flask and the torch on the floor and lay down on the easy chair. It was quite uncomfortable, but having spent many a night before under far more weird circumstances, I didn't mind. The sun had set at 5:30. It grew dark white soon, and that smell grew stronger. I don't usually get worked up, but I must admit last night I felt a strange excitement. I couldn't tell you the exact time, but I guess it must have been around 9 p.m. when a firefly flew in through the window and buzzed around the room for a minute before flying out. Gradually, the jackals in the distance stopped their chorus, and the crickets fell silent. I cannot tell when I fell asleep. I was awakened by a noise. It was the noise of a clock striking midnight. A deep, yet melodious chime came from the passage. Now fully awake, I noticed two other things. First, I was lying quite uncomfortably in the easy chair. The torn portion wasn't torn anymore, and someone had tucked a cushion behind my back. Secondly, a brand new fan hung over my head. A long rope from it went out to the passage, and an unseen hand was pulling it gently. I was starting at these things and enjoying them thoroughly, when I realized that from somewhere in the moonless night a full moon had appeared. The room was flooded with bright moonlight. Then the aroma of something totally unexpected hit my nostrils.
I turned and found a hookah by my side, the rich smell of the best quality tobacco filling the whole room.
Anath Babu stopped. Then he smiled and said,
Quite a pleasant situation, wouldn't you agree?
I said, yes, indeed. So you spent the rest of the night pretty comfortably, did you? At this, Anath Babu suddenly grew grave and sank into a deep silence. I waited for him to resume speaking, but when he didn't, I turned impatient. Do you mean to say, I asked, that you really didn't have any reason to feel frightened? You didn't see a ghost after all. Anath Babu looked at me, but there was not even the slightest trace of a smile on his lips. His voice sounded hoarse as he asked, When you went into the room the day before yesterday, did you happen to look carefully at the ceiling? No, I don't think I did. Why? There is something rather special about it. I cannot tell you the rest of my story without showing it to you. Come, let's go in. We began climbing the dark staircase again. On our way to the first floor, Anath Babu said only one thing.
I will not have to chase ghosts again, Shitesh Babu. Never. I have finished with them.
I looked at the grandfather clock in the passage. It stood just as it had done 2 days ago. We stopped in front of the west room. Go in, said Anath Babu. The door was closed. I pushed it open and went in. Then my eyes fell on the floor, and a wave of horror swept over me. Who was lying on the floor? Heavy boots on his feet? And whose laughter was that? Loud and raucous, coming from the passage outside, echoing through every corner of the Haldane mansion, drowning me in it, paralyzing my senses, my mind. Could it be? I could think no more. When I opened my eyes, I found Bharadwaj standing at the foot of my bed, and Bhabatosh Majumdar fanning me furiously. Oh, thank goodness you have come around, he exclaimed. If Shidhu Charan hadn't seen you go into that house, heaven knows what might have happened. Why on earth did you go there? Anyway, I could only mutter faintly. Last night, Anath Babu. Bhabatosh Babu cut me short. Anath Babu? It's too late now to do anything about him. Obviously, he didn't believe a word of what I had said the other day. Thank God you didn't go with him to spend the night in that room. You saw what happened to him, didn't you? Exactly the same thing happened to Haldar Datta all those years ago. Lying on the floor, cold and stiff, the same look of horror in his open eyes, staring at the ceiling. I thought quietly to myself, no, he's not lying there cold and stiff. I know what's become of Anath Babu after his death. I might find him, even tomorrow morning. Perhaps, if I bother to go back. There he would be wearing a black jacket and heavy boots, coming out of the jungle in the Haldar mansion, a neem twig in his hand, grinning from ear to ear. So here it ends. The end really gave me goosebumps, and I can also remember right now that there was a movie based upon this story. The movie's name was Jekhane Bhuter Bhoy, and it consists of 3 stories as far as I remember, and Anath Babur Bhoy is one of them. I can remember right now that while I was watching the movie, it really sent a chill sensation down my spine. It's so horrifying. Uh, so, anyways, hope you have enjoyed listening my story, and if you like my presentation, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And all I want to say to you, please keep showering your love and blessings and support. I'll be coming very soon with a new story. Till then, have nice days ahead. Goodbye.